So I want to talk about Cotoneaster today, and why it is such a good species for bonsai, and also why I think it's a good species for beginners. And if you Google lists or Google videos about uh, good bonsai species for beginners, Cotoneaster often comes up. And I don't have many of them, but I do have this little guy right here I've had for a couple of years. And I've been waiting for this tree to flower for 2 years, I think. And it's finally flowering right now. It's looking really good. I'm really enjoying it. And I've had some Cotoneasters in the past, one that died on me, but that was very early in my bonsai experience. So this tree has been great, and yeah, I wanted to talk about it. So why do Cotoneasters make good beginner tree? First, they have these really small leaves, which is good for smaller bonsai. And smaller bonsai are often better for beginners, not tiny bonsai, but smaller, because you don't have to wait a long time to get a big trunk, and you don't have to buy a big trunk. You can, because of the size of the leaves, they're very small, you can make a convincing image of an old tree in a smaller tree, and you won't have to wait for this trunk to bulk up. So small leaves. Along comes with that's really nice are these small flowers that are very in scale for a smaller plant. It looks like a miniature apple tree, which I really love. And these flowers, they also, after they flower, they often berry, and they're often red berries, and they also look like small apples. So that's the image I'm going for here with this tree, is a small apple tree image. So yeah, number one, small leaves, flowers, berries make this a good bonsai especially for beginners, because you can make a convincing looking tree in a short amount of time, and you don't have to pay a lot. And so that brings me to my second point, kind of along the lines of not having to pay a lot and it being cheap, is Cotoneaster are available in lots of places. I know, for instance, on bonsai.com you can buy bonsai starters of these. They're pre-wired. Also Evergreen Garden Works, where I bought some material. They have some starter material, but even that's online, and you can find other sources online, I'm sure, everywhere. But just at your local garden center, at least the United States. I can't speak for other countries, and frankly, I can't speak for other portions of the United States. But in the northwestern United States, where I'm at, there's always tons of Cotoneaster material, and that's where I got the material for this. This is actually a bigger plant that was much larger than this, in a much larger 1 or 2 gallon size container. And I basically pruned it down to nothing just to get this trunk. And I think it cost $20 maybe, if that. So yeah, the material is readily available. So number 2 reason why this is a good species. And so number 3 is these respond really well to bonsai culture, meaning they seem to do well in small containers. This one is doing just fine in this tiny container. And they respond really well to pruning and hard pruning. I really hard pruned this, and I got new branches growing everywhere. And they constantly send out new shoots all over and back bud well, which makes it easy to train as a bonsai. So those are 3 reasons why I think these make good starter trees, or just bonsai material in general. But I do want to, two disadvantages, I guess, I want to share to you that I thought of was, number 1, this is minor, apparently, and just more something to be aware of about Cotoneaster, and I haven't tested this out with cold winter temperatures, but even though their tops are quite cold hardy generally, there's a lot of different Cotoneaster species, so some I'm sure are more cold tolerant than others. I think this one would have done fine in my landscape planted as far as top hardiness, and I'm USDA zone 6, so quite cold hardy, and I see these in landscapes a lot. And but it's a root hardiness is a different thing altogether. There's top hardiness for cold temperatures, and then root hardiness. And for Cotoneasters, apparently their roots are quite sensitive to the cold. So I do have to kind of look out for this tree a little bit more than many of my other temperate trees during the winter time. So that's just something to be aware of. Their roots are kind of tender to frost. Second thing is they're in the rose family, which along with roses, of course, and apples are in the rose family. Crab apples, apples, and something I just found my experience is because of that, they're delicious to bugs. Bugs just love the rose family. My roses, I always get aphids and all sorts of bugs. My apple tree, I'm always getting scale on it. This little tree had some branches start to die off mysteriously the first year I got it, and it seemed really healthy, like it was growing really well, and then there was very much just a zonal kind of section of the tree that started dying, and I was confused, and just chalked it up to just, I don't know, it just, who knows what happened. Then that winter I actually saw 2 little holes in the tree, in the trunk, right where I had lost several branches, and I realized, okay, it was a boring type insect that bored into the tree and killed that section. Thankfully, it is kind of filled in since that incident. But yeah, I've also on this tree just this year, I found these, never seen them before, these really tiny scale insects on the tree. So yeah, just I found with that, since it's in the rose family, I think bugs do especially find these things delicious and perhaps more prone to disease than some other species that you might use for bonsai. But other than that, I think they're a great tree. They're cheap, respond well to pruning, and since they have such small leaves, you can make a convincing bonsai in a relatively short amount of time because you don't have to wait for a big, fat, thick trunk or buy a big trunk. So very affordable. And one thing that I didn't mention, I realize now, is along with them being really easy to find, related to that is they're in a lot of landscapes, at least in my region in the northwestern United States. So if you're lucky enough, maybe you could find one, to dig up that's been ground grown for years and years, and get a really nice trunk to work with from that. But even with that, I made this little tree from garden material that cost $20, and each year it looks better and better. The branches mature a little bit more, and if you really want that little tiny apple tree type look, Cotoneaster is, I think, the way to go.